Imagine waking up in a hospital room after surgery, slowly realizing that a part of your body, a finger, a foot, or even a limb, is no longer there. It's a moment filled with relief, fear, and sometimes grief. But once the surgery is over and the doctors have done their job, a quiet and rarely discussed question remains. Where do amputated body parts actually go? Do hospitals keep them? Are they buried, burned, or studied? It might sound like an uncomfortable question, but behind it lies a story about safety, dignity, and respect for the human body. Let's walk through what really happens, step by step, right here on History of Simple Things. The moment an amputation procedure is completed, the removed body part does not simply disappear into some unknown hospital storage room. Instead, it is immediately handled under strict medical protocols. Hospitals classify removed body parts as biohazardous medical waste, a term that may sound cold at first but is actually rooted in safety. Human tissue contains blood, fluids, and microorganisms that could potentially spread infection if handled carelessly. This classification isn't meant to remove dignity from the body. It exists to protect people. Surgical staff carefully place the amputated tissue into specially designed containers that are leak-proof, sealed, and clearly labeled. Each step is recorded and tracked, ensuring that nothing is mishandled or lost. It is a process that reflects caution and accountability because hospitals must protect not just the patient, but also healthcare workers and the public. Many people wonder why hospitals cannot simply throw amputated parts into the trash. The answer is both simple and serious. Human tissue can carry bacteria, viruses, and other biological hazards. If disposed of improperly, it could expose sanitation workers, waste handlers, and even communities to dangerous infections. For this reason, governments around the world enforce strict rules governing medical waste disposal. These regulations exist to protect public health, prevent contamination, and ensure environmental safety. Hospitals must follow carefully defined guidelines that dictate how tissue is stored, transported, and eventually destroyed. However, incineration is not always the only outcome. In certain situations, patients or their families may request to have the amputated body part returned to them. This might seem surprising, but it happens more often than many people realize. Cultural and religious traditions sometimes require the burial of all body parts, even those removed during surgery. For some individuals, the idea of burying the amputated limb offers emotional closure, a way to acknowledge loss and honor the body. Hospitals may allow this request, but only after strict legal and safety procedures are followed. The patient or family usually needs to sign formal documents and arrange safe handling and transportation. In some cases, the amputated limb is buried in a cemetery, much like a traditional funeral, allowing families to observe rituals that align with their beliefs. Another path that amputated remains may take involves medical research and education. With proper consent, some tissues are used to help train medical students or improve surgical techniques. Real human tissue provides invaluable learning opportunities that artificial models cannot fully replicate. Sometimes, amputated body parts are not disposed of immediately because they need to be studied further in a medical field known as pathology. doctors may need to examine the removed tissue closely to understand the disease or injury that led to the amputation. For instance, cancerous tissue may be analyzed to confirm the diagnosis and determine whether the disease has spread. Beyond the technical and environmental aspects lies a deeply human dimension that is often overlooked: the emotional impact of amputation. Losing a body part is not simply a medical event, it is a life-changing experience that affects identity, independence, and daily living. Patients may feel grief, anxiety, frustration, or even relief depending on the circumstances that led to the surgery. For some, understanding what happens to their amputated limb provides a sense of closure. Looking back into history reveals how different the handling of amputated remains once was. Before modern sanitation systems existed, hospitals lacked the tools and knowledge needed to manage biological waste safely. Amputated limbs were sometimes buried nearby or disposed of in ways that would be considered unsafe today. During times of war, particularly before antibiotics were widely available, surgeons performed large numbers of amputations under extreme conditions. Limbs were often piled together and buried in mass graves or burned in open pits. These methods reflected the urgency and limitations of the time rather than a lack of respect. Over the centuries, advances in medicine and public health transformed these practices into the organized systems used today, where safety and dignity are prioritized. Regardless of the specific outcome, one principle remains constant: the human body, even after removal of a part, is treated with dignity. Understanding what happens behind the scenes answers more than just a curious question. It reveals the quiet systems that allow hospitals to function safely and compassionately. And perhaps most importantly, it reminds us that medicine is not only about saving lives in the moment, but also about honoring the human body every step of the way. Thank you for joining us on this journey through the history of simple things. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more stories woven through the smallest details.